Hey, so glad you're with us for the Monday edition of the Martini Lunch. As you know, Jim Garrity is away, and here in his place, Kylee Griswold, managing editor of the Federalist. She's also the host of the Kylee Cast, and she is the first ever former intern of mine to join us as the guest host on the Martini Lunch. She's one of those people that walks in the door and within a few days, you're like, oh, she's going to make it. She's going to do just fine. And I have not been proven wrong on that at all. Kylee, great to have you with us. Good to see you again.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Greg. That's truly an honor and so kind of you to say.
Absolutely. And so we've got really three crazy martinis today. We've got the media finally admitting, the mainstream media that is, what most of us on the right were saying when Trump federalized the D.C. police forces. Oh, the D.C. police officials have been fudging the numbers and reducing serious crimes down to less serious crimes. We've also got the ridiculously low sentence for the person who was planning to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and why will make your blood boil. And of course, we're going to start here in just a few minutes with the J. Jones saga in Virginia, where the Democratic nominee for Attorney General texted at length about fantasizing about murdering Republicans, not when he was a teenager, just 3 years ago. So, Kylee, your first entrance to the Martini Lunch is going to be a lot of insanity.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, so we'll dig into all of that in just a moment. But first, a brand new sponsor, and that is Noble Gold. And look, there's different ways to invest, and diversification is really what most smart money managers and financial analysts will tell you. And gold IRAs let you hold real assets in a tax-deferred or tax-free retirement account. And Noble Gold is the #1 ranked gold IRA company 4 years in a row with more than $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. And whenever we get a sponsor, especially kind of in this area, I'm like, how good are they? So I look up their ratings. What are the people who have trusted them and gone with them before? Think about them. 4.9 out of 5 with a lot of reviews. And so we're talking about real people, real support. Their U.S. team is easy to reach, 12 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. Also, their pricing is clear and upfront, no hidden fees or tricky fine print. And they know the markets. They know the metals, the strategies, and they explain them in a way that's easy to understand. They don't give you gimmicks. They're just honest, fact-based insights and clear options. So take advantage of this limited time offer. Open a new qualified IRA or cash account with Noble Gold and get a free 10-ounce silver flag bar plus a silver American Eagle proof coin. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com/3ML. That's noblegoldinvestments.com/3ML. All right, Kylee, let's dig into crazy martini #1 here. And this broke on Friday. Audrey Fahlberg over at National Review is the one who got her hands somehow on these texts from 2022. This is when J. Jones, the current Democratic nominee for Attorney General in Virginia, they have their state elections this year, just next month. He was in the House of Delegates, and so was Republican Kerry Coyner. And so they were having this tech exchange because a House Republican had died and a moderate House Democrat had said nice things about the person that died. And J. Jones did not particularly like that. So let's dig into that now. And the text from Coyner says, they say nice things about everyone, LOL. And then Jones says, if those guys die before me, and parents be careful, I will go to their funerals to piss on their graves. Send them out awash in something. Coyner says, J. Jones. And then he just goes on. 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, meaning Todd Gilbert, at that time the Speaker of the House in Virginia. Hitler and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. And so it doesn't end there because she's aghast. And she says, J. Jones, you have got to stop talking like that. And so then the next exchange was her saying, you weren't simply asking questions and you know it. And he says, I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. Coyner says, you weren't trying to understand. You were talking about hoping that Jennifer Gilbert's children, meaning the Speaker's wife and kids, would die. Yes, he says, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. They're still not done, Kylee, because eventually she's begging him to stop talking in this violent way. She says, I point blank asked you more than 3 times and you dug in, which means you meant it. And he says, I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. And so, okay, so how does J. Jones react to this? on the campaign trail when this comes out? Well, first of all, he tries to just dismiss it entirely. He says, like all people, I've sent text messages that I regret, and I believe that violent rhetoric has no place in our politics. Let's be clear about what's happening in the attorney general race right now. Jason Miyares, he's the incumbent Republican, is dropping smears through Trump-controlled media organizations to assault my character and rescue his desperate campaign. This is a strategy that ensures Jason Miyares will continue to be accountable to Donald Trump, not the people of Virginia. This race is about whether Trump can control Virginia or Virginians control Virginia. And then that was very clear that that wasn't good enough. So then he issues another statement which says he's just sick to his stomach now that he's seen these comments, and he's called Speaker Gilbert. And then he goes on TV to grovel and listen to the questions and how he responds here.
You're asking Virginians to vote for a man who compared his political opponents to mass murderers. Isn't that type of rhetoric disqualifying for someone who's seeking statewide office here in Virginia?
Well, the rhetoric has no place on our landscape, no place in our discourse, and again, for that, I am deeply, deeply sorry. I should have never done it. It's very embarrassing to me, and certainly I regret it.
The National Review's article, which came out today, says after those text messages were sent to Carrie Coyner, you picked up the phone and called her. You said, according to the article, I'm quoting, Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views. Did you say that?
Bottom line is that the language is unacceptable. And again, I deeply, deeply, deeply wish that it hadn't happened. I have spent the entire day really regretting all of it. I certainly wish that it hadn't happened. And I'm sick to my stomach when I read those words. And certainly they're objectionable, they're abhorrent, they have no place in Virginia, no place in this country's discourse. And so, again, I am so deep.
Yeah. I'm sure he regrets that he got caught, and it came out now, Kylee. I'm sure that's the extent of the regret. Republicans are saying, from Winsome Sears, the nominee for governor on down, this is disqualifying. He's got to drop out. Democrats are, for the most part, doubling down. State elected officials, some of them Democrats saying, yeah, it's bad language, but Jason Miyares is awful. We can't let this distract us. So what do you make of this fight?
Yeah, it's really so disgusting. I was appalled at the statements that he issued. I mean, the first one, obviously, not even owning up to it at all, just turning it around as if it's Jason Miyares doing Oppo research and nothing more than that. But then his follow-up statement, I was just so taken aback that he said, he issues this very performative apology, but then closes it out by saying the people of Virginia deserve an attorney general who is willing to own up to his mistakes. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure they deserve an attorney general who doesn't wish death and murder on his political opponents, and not only his political opponents, but their wives and children, on basically the other half of the country that doesn't agree with Jay Jones's politics. I mean, that was truly just so disgusting. And yeah, the text messages themselves are just enough to make you want to hurl. I mean, it's really so abhorrent, and particularly after what we have witnessed in this country over the past few weeks, but then even over the past couple of years, just the temperature. And it's so laughable to hear Democrats talking about turning down the temperature when these are the people they're running. And not only they're not even calling on him to drop out of the race. And that is just, it's so telling about where the Democrat Party is. I was especially appalled also at the media blackout of this. It has been crazy to watch that happen. Jay Jones himself, in his apology that you played, called the texts abhorrent. And so when Politico ran a headline about this, they called the texts abhorrent, but they put abhorrent in quotes, as if you can't call these texts what they are unless you're quoting the guy's apology. I mean, no, the texts are objectively abhorrent. There is nothing. If you search Jay Jones in the New York Times, there is not a single mention of Jay Jones over the past month. And from the Washington Post, they characterized it as, let's see here, 2022 texts depicting political violence. What a way to refer to the Democrat Attorney General candidate calling for the assassination, essentially, of a Republican. And it's also just been so amusing, to refer to these as 2022 texts. Like, they're emphasizing that this happened 3 years ago. This isn't the way Jay Jones feels now. It must be only how he felt 3 years ago. It's so laughable and so predictable from the media to cover for this.
Yeah, you could play the what if he was a Republican game, and we all know how it would go. There would be this relentless drumbeat. Every Republican at every level of government would have to answer for it and be called out on the record to give a reaction to it. But now, other than a tweet here and there from Abigail Spanberger or Mark Warner saying, oh, you really shouldn't have done that. But no call to get out is just ridiculous. And Jay Jones was already having a bad week because it just turned out that also in 2022, he also had a bad 2022, he was pulled over for driving 116 miles an hour. It's reckless driving. Somehow he gets out of jail time by doing 1,000 hours of community service, and 500 of it was spent doing work for his political action committee. So it's basically in his own campaign, and somehow that's okay. And then it just gets even worse. It's just amazing how the Democrats and the media will try to bury this because somehow Trump.
Yeah. And one piece of this that I think just kind of gets brushed over, it's a mention in the lead of a piece, but it's not something that anybody's really dwelling on, is the fact that this is a candidate for the Attorney General. This is not somebody who's just running for like a low level seat in Congress. Not that that would, or not in Congress, but like in the Virginia House. Not that that would make it any better. Like these are horrific things, no matter how you slice it. But you're talking about somebody who's running for the chief law enforcement role of Virginia. And this is the guy who's going just deadly speeds and calling for or wishing death upon his political opponents. It's like, this is the guy that you think best represents law and order in Virginia. It's just crazy to me that that's the office he's running for.
Exactly. And it's one thing to be frustrated. I don't know how you get that worked up when somebody said something nice about somebody that died. That doesn't show a lot of emotional stability. But time after time, Carrie Coyner's like, Jay, stop. He calls her to like double down. Then they resume the text conversation, and over, like, no. They need to suffer in order to change their positions. That's what needs to happen. And they're breeding little fascists. And so, as we've seen from the Charlie Kirk situation, there are people who think that if you have those beliefs and that if you're raising people to believe certain things, that you're a fascist, and therefore either implied or directly stated that somehow you're fair game for violent action. And so, very, very twisted. The other thing I would say here, Kylee, is that early voting started in Virginia on September 19th. So there was 2 full weeks of people voting and not knowing any of this. Look, I'm not a fan of early voting at all, but extended early voting this far back when so much can be learned about candidates that you just don't know when early voting kicks off, I think that needs to be seriously reconsidered.
Yeah, these are obvious consequences to Election Day turning into election month, and even longer than election month. That's just a crazy consequence of that. Also, just on your comment about the fascism remarks, it's really just, people like to say how crazy and unhinged Democrats are. But this is just a good reminder that this is all calculated. This is all part of the normal script in the normal playbook. This is not just Jay Jones spouting off that when he's called on it, he is like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. It's somebody who is doubling down and who legitimately thinks that if you hold views that are contrary to his, that makes you not only a fascist, but your children are fascists. And so it's no wonder that we're seeing the type of political violence that we're seeing coming from the left. I mean, this is largely a left-wing problem. When you have leaders in the party who use this type of rhetoric and who just this is part of their normal discourse, and they do not apologize for it and in fact make excuses for it and double down on it.
Yeah, utterly insane. And we'll see if it has an impact. There's still a lot of people, I assume, who haven't voted yet, so maybe that will change their minds. But it doesn't look like the Democrats are going to cut them loose. I'm not even sure what the process for that would be right now, but they certainly are doubling down in defending him on the ballot. So, all right, well, let's talk about dose for your liver. Did you know the liver is the second largest organ in your body? It is responsible for more than 500 functions, but for some reason, liver health doesn't always get the attention it deserves. But now there's Dose for Your Liver, formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, aid digestion, and maintain your body's filter. The liver produces and regulates cholesterol, stores vitamins and minerals, and impacts digestive and metabolic health, among many other things. But Dose is going to make you feel better. It gives you more energy, better digestion, reduces bloating, healthier liver enzyme function, reduction in brain fog, better sleep, and in a study, lower enzyme levels by 50% in more than 86% of participants. So support your health with Dose Daily. Save 25% on your first month when you subscribe at dosedaily.co/3ml or enter the code 3ml at checkout. Please note the 25% discount applies only to subscription orders, not one-time purchases. Cancel anytime, no hassle. That's dosedaily.co/3ml to get 25% off your first monthly subscription with the code 3ml. L. All right, Kylee, that wasn't the only insanity that unfolded on Friday. Let's move over to the federal courts, where the sentence came down for the guy who plotted and actually came from California to D.C. to murder Justice Brett Kavanaugh in 2022. Boy, 2022 is not having a good day today because of the leaked Dobbs decision and on overturning Roe v. Wade. And so the Justice Department, after this guy had pled guilty, mind you, had recommended 30 years in prison for trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. He gets 8. This guy's name is Nicholas Roski. But after he was arrested, his legal team says, oh, no, it's not Nicholas. It's Sophie. He's actually transgender, which wouldn't usually matter in the minds of a judge when you're talking about somebody who's trying to murder a Supreme Court justice. But Biden appointee Deborah Boardman, no. She raised concerns about the conditions Roski would face in federal prison as a transgender woman and the mental health treatment she would receive. Every media outlet is just immediately going with the pronoun change here. Mm-hmm. Quote, we both know about the very significant shortcomings in the Bureau of Prisons when it comes to treating mentally ill prisoners, Boardman told the government's lawyer, Corrine Mao. The judge also raised President Donald Trump's executive order this year requiring that inmates be incarcerated in facilities that align with the gender assigned at birth. Oh, what a phrase that is. So, I mean, the judge is admitting that this person is mentally ill. I'm not sure why the LGBT folks aren't screaming at her. They probably will if they ever actually read this. But Kylee, the idea here that you go from a recommended 30 years down to 8 simply because this person is identified as transgender and, oh, well, this person who's actually a man would have to go to a man's prison, gets almost 3/4 of the recommended sentence knocked off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's worth noting that it's not just that she gave an 8-year sentence instead of a 30-year sentence, or, I mean, technically the max sentence in this case would be life in prison, but she gave the sentence of exactly what the defense had asked for. So she's basically agreeing with Roski and his team, even after, like you said, he pled guilty to these charges. It's also worth noting that Roski did not just intend to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh. I believe the quote was that he was shooting for 3. So you're talking about a broader plan to commit political terrorism against. I mean, that's what that is. It's ideologically motivated. It's intended to stoke fear into one political party or into the court. Into the half the country that was okay with the fact and cheering the fact the Dobbs decision or the Dobbs leak. And so that's really crazy. Also interesting is that Boardman basically gutted the terrorism enhancements. So, you can apply these different enhancements to a case like this so that you can charge it, or so that you can charge and then sentence with a more severe penalty. And she gutted all of that so that it couldn't be carried out to the max sentence. And so all of that considered, and then the cherry on top is just the trans identifying element, where this is not even someone who claimed to be trans before they carried out this act, or I shouldn't say, I mean, obviously he did not ultimately get to pull the trigger on Justice Kavanaugh, but from plotting it, planning it, getting all of the equipment, traveling across the country, and only stopping after he literally got to Brett Kavanaugh's residence and saw U.S. Marshals outside. This was not the beginnings, the concepts of a plan, as was it Kamala Harris said, but this is an actual full plan that was thwarted at the last minute by the U.S. Marshal. And so, the trans element is just so ridiculous on top of this, because this was something that was just manufactured as it is after this person was already jailed.
Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous. And the media's lockstep. Okay, well, if that's what he says he is, that's what he is now. We're gonna call him, her all the time now. Even CBS here. This was my favorite part. Roski was arrested and charged under a male name. They can't even tell you what the supposedly former name was, but now goes by Sophie Roski. That's how committed they are to the ideological mission on that particular issue. So,
yes. You wouldn't even know that he was a male with some of the coverage. I think it was MSNBC literally just used woman in the headline. They didn't even use the euphemism trans woman. They just went with woman. I mean, that is truly crazy. Like propaganda to the max. Insane.
Exactly. And it's bad enough when they're trying to, change the rules on sports and changing rooms and locker rooms and all that sort of thing. Now it gives you a massive advantage in court to claim this, even on some of the most serious possible charges. It's not the first time we've seen this, because remember, Bradley Manning was charged with very serious crimes for leaking classified military information to WikiLeaks. And then after that, he becomes Chelsea, and then Obama commutes the sentence for no other reason. It's obvious there's no other reason than that. It's just amazing how much power that has in Democratic politics. Very, very scary.
Incentivizing the transgender identity, but also, I mean, there's no other way to really view this other than assassination prep. I mean, Boardman and the court are basically spreading the message that if you look to assassinate your political opponents, we will cover for you. This is exactly what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. This is exactly what's happened with other Democrats, where this act of political violence is carried out by someone on the left, and the response is such that it implies we will seek the most lenient sentence, the most lenient charge, the most lenient way to refer to terrorism. And so you're really just laying the groundwork for more instances of this type of thing. And I think another aspect of this that's really interesting is that Boardman, if this gets appealed and the left-wing Fourth Circuit agrees with Boardman, this could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, which is so ironic and so twisted because it was the Supreme Court, members of it, that were under attack. I mean, will half of the court and the conservatives on the court all have to recuse themselves if this goes up to the Supreme Court, and then the left-wing justices can just, basically endorse the Boardman verdict? It is so crazy. And it's going to be interesting. I think Congress does have a duty here to step in, and they should try to impeach Boardman, in my view.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous argument. I mean, the cut and dried facts, the confession, and all of a sudden that changes the equation here so much. We've lost the plot without question. All right, way better than that. OneSkin. OneSkin has a lot of different products. Mrs. Columbus has talked about how, it goes in real smooth. It's not greasy. It absorbs real nicely. They also have a sunscreen over at OneSkin, which is great for helping your skin not suffer from the effects of the sun. Forget the sunburn aspect, but just the weathering and so forth and aging of your skin if you spend too much time in the sun. And so it's a real simple product, and it's very carefully engineered. OneSkin is known for favorites like OS1 Body, OS1 Face, and OS1 Eye. OneSkin also stands out for their science-first approach to skin aging, delivering hydration, barrier support, and powerful longevity benefits in every product. And at the core is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, those the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness in your skin. Didn't realize crepiness was a word. Loss of elasticity, and on it goes. So OneSkin is changing how we age by focusing on skin and scalp health at the cellular level, powered by their patented OS1 peptide. Every formula is designed to keep skin healthier, stronger, and more resilient over time. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using the code 3ML at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co. with the code 3ML. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support the 3 Martini Lunch and tell them that we sent you. All right, Kylee, on to our third crazy martini now. And the right usually breaks stories that the left will say is a conspiracy theory, and you can't even talk about it because it's so outlandish. And then eventually they admit that the right was correct the whole time, whether it's the lab leak in China, whether it's the Hunter Biden laptop, whether it's Joe Biden is deficient for the job of president. And then at some point, somebody decides in the mainstream media, okay, we can admit that now, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So the latest thing, I'm sure you remember, Kylee, is that back in August, President Trump declared a 30-day federalizing of the D.C. police force, bringing in the National Guard. Crime is out of control in D.C. And the reaction on the left was either there is no crime problem or crime has actually gotten a whole lot better in D.C. So I don't know what the president's talking about here. This is ridiculous. And so now finally the Washington Post says, and we were talking about this exact thing back then, and it was reported on locally as early as June. Some rank and file officers and detectives in D.C. have complained for months, in some cases years, that managers were recording serious crimes as more minor ones to make their police districts appear safer or avoid the ire of top department brass. Some kept lists documenting cases where they believed a higher-up improperly classified a crime as a lesser offense. One such tally obtained by the Washington Post lists more than 150 instances since March of 2024 where staff in a Southeast D.C. police district believed offenses were at least initially inappropriately classified. And so, Kylee, this is exactly what we talked about at the time. The Democrats didn't want to hear it. D.C. obviously is in a much better state now since those 30 days, and there's still some National Guard presence here. And now all of a sudden, it's okay to admit a major underpinning of the argument for that move in the first place. So once again, you've got the mainstream media saying, okay, now we can admit that.
Right, right. I mean, conservatives have been saying this for years. This isn't even a Trump thing. I wrote years ago about the fact that D.C., back when I was living there, basically that D.C. was a third world country. And all of the usual suspects come out of the woodwork to say, oh no, D.C. is perfectly safe. It's perfectly wonderful. And then the exact same thing happened then when Trump was deploying the National Guard. And you had the Chuck Schumers of the world saying, I don't feel unsafe when I walk around in D.C. It's like, first of all, you're a grown man. Second of all, you have security. Like, what about female GW students or whoever who are out walking around? Like, it's talk to the average Joe, and they do not have the same perception, of course, about security in D.C. as the Chuck Schumers of the world do. But it's, as you know, like, this is exactly how the normal operating procedure goes for the corporate media, where it's you deny that it's a problem, deny. We saw it with COVID, whether it was a lab leak or whether it was, mask efficacy or vaccine efficacy. And we saw the same thing with Joe Biden, that, his critics are just watching him stumble down the stairs and unable to form a coherent thought. And it was, oh no, he is the sharpest and most vigorous we've ever seen him. He's making top level decisions and is doing wonderful. He's never been stronger. And then, of course, you have Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson and the rest cashing in, with a book to try to talk about the cover-up, that they were part of the cover-up. This is the normal operating procedure. The media basically exists to run a CYA mission for Democrats. And then the second it doesn't matter anymore, that's when they'll admit that actually, no, this is how it's going. But it's even more than that, because it reminds me of how, a parent whose child identifies as transgender and they go through all of the, sterilizing hormones and surgeries and whatever, they can't admit that trans medicine is a sham. Or, the abortionist who's taken hundreds of unborn lives can't admit that an unborn child is in fact a human life. It has to be a clump of cells, because you get to the point where you're so bought in on something and you've made so many decisions down this line that you can't admit that the underlying premise is completely wrong. And so this isn't just a case of, the media are mediating, they're doing the thing that they always do. This is, Democrats have spent years on soft on crime policies and abolish the police and, restorative justice and rehabilitative justice and, trying to counter the narrative that police are inherently racist. So therefore, like, we can't arrest anyone unless they have, ivory white skin. And so they've so bought into these theories of policing and these theories of justice to the point that their cities are they're just a hellhole. And so, of course, you can't admit the real problem when it's a problem until it's after the fact, because it would do more than just hurt. It would do more than just help Donald Trump. It undermines your entire theory of governance.
Yeah, I mean, we see that with the low or no cash bail. People like Zohran Mamdani claiming that violent crime is a social construct, and what's the point of prisons other than making a few people? We get bad people away from the people who obey the law. That's what they're for. And so, yeah, there'd be a lot of peeling back for them to admit that they're wrong. But fortunately, they're so blatantly obvious about it now. I think the majority of the public sees them, whether it's coddling criminal illegals or just criminals in general. I think the Democrats are losing this fight, thankfully, finally. Yeah. So, Kylee, fantastic conversation. Thanks for filling in for Jim today. Good luck with your own podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Greg.
You bet. Kylee Griswold, managing editor at the Federalist, also host of the Kylee Cast. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us all on X. Kylee is at Kylee Griswold. That's KYLEE GRISWOLD. Jim is at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Have a great Monday. Join us again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.